Hello folks, welcome to the Northern Exile channel. Hope you're having a good day. And if you like what I do, the subscribe button is down below. Make sure you hit that if you want to help the channel grow. Let's jump right into it, shall we? Because we've got quite a few hobby nightmares to go through today. And by quite a few, I mean 3, but there are rather large ones in here too. That's what she said. Let's move on, shall we? John says, "Hello North. You can call me John, thank you very much. By the way, folks, if my voice goes a little bit, I don't know what happened overnight, but I don't want to say I slept on my voice funny, because that sounds ridiculous. But you know what I mean? When you wake up and your voice just isn't working properly, well, it's now halfway through the day and it's still not working properly, and I've got to record, so, you know, bear with me, please. You can call me John. My real name is unpronounceable to people outside of Flemish-speaking Belgium and the Netherlands. So, for convenience, I'll call myself John outside of those areas. The names below are changed. Don't challenge me this way, John. I'm going to try and pronounce your name. Sorry, it's going to happen. Let's have a little look-see here. All of the Dutch people in the comments are like, no. Jeroen. Jeroen? Yeah? Jeroen? I think I've got it right. We'll see. If I did get it right, John, put it in the comment section down below, mate. I've been listening to your channel for a long time. I've just been sending back my hobby nightmare from years ago. A story so extreme that it has taken me to a very dark place ever since. Okay. It was the start of Age of Sigmar. I then played double starter sets with Mike, my best friend. It was his Stormcast Eternals versus my Chaos, and we had both brought the set and traded armies. Okay, well, that's a good way of doing it. You've hit the jackpot if you've got a friend who wants the other army in the starter box set. The game was only 2 turns old when Oliver came in, another friend, and asked Mike for a game of 40k to play later that evening. Mike thinks that's fine, and the plan was to go ahead and play against him later after our battle. Back then, Age of Sigmar games went pretty quickly. There was no point system yet, and Mike and I thought starter sets against starter sets was kind of fair. Oliver sat next to us and watched the rest of the game. He hadn't played Age of Sigmar himself at the time, and was just curious about what kind of game it was. Yeah, I forget how much of a Wild West OG Age of Sigmar was. If you're one of those players, comment section down below, how was it for you? Because I never played it back then. Was it like the Wild West, like I'm thinking? Because whenever I saw it being played in store, my god, was it wild. So, you know, no points, it was, you know, the really obscure, weird rules, you know, that you get like a reroll for wearing glasses, things like that. It was awesome. Well, not awesome, but strange, odd. Anyway, moving on. So everything so far has been running normally, so take a sip of tea. The nightmare is about to begin. Thank you very much, I will. Everything was well and good until Anita, another friend, came in a few rounds later. She asked Mike if he could go and play Age of Sigmar with her after this game, and to my surprise, Mike said, "Yeah, that's alright." Immediately, Oliver said, "Mike, you're going to play 40k with me, right?" To which Mike said, "Nah, I'd rather play Age of Sigmar instead of 40k. Oliver was only a teenager at the time, so I stood up for him and told Mike to keep his promise, when Mike refused by literally saying, "Listen, I don't care." Something inside of me snapped, and literally said that it's quite a dick move to rather play Age of Sigmar with Anita than 40k with Oliver. As I write this, I notice this can be seen both literally and figuratively. Yeah, I was thinking, my mind went that way, yeah. Like a girl comes in, says, "You want to play this game with me?" And he goes, "Yeah, okay." And just like, fobs off his friend, you know? Not nice. Even though I didn't really have any 40k models with me, I came up with a solution. I immediately quit Mike's battle and went to make a 40k list using a Chaos Space Marines codex that I happened to have in my phone. The models with armor were Marines, the Barbarians were Cultists, and the monsters were Demon Princes. This way, I could bring the Age of Sigmar models into a 40k game. It didn't matter to Oliver that the bases were not 100% correct, he was happy to be playing at all. When I started to pick my models off the table, Mike said, "Oh, so you give up and I win then?" There's only one answer to that. Yeah, dude, whatever. I had a nice game of 40k with Oliver. It was the first time I had played Chaos Space Marines. In retrospect, my list was 160 points short of what we were playing with, and I also forgot half the rules, so lost quite badly. But that didn't matter to me at all. Oliver was fairly new to 40k, and enjoyed playing from an experienced Space Wolf player. Okay, so he was an experienced Space Wolf player, okay. And enjoyed playing from an experienced Space Wolf player. I think your lack of English is getting jumbled up here. Right, so he learned playing the game from an experienced Space Wolf player. Okay, fair enough. Now, years later, I no longer have a beard, and I'm still a father, and also enjoy playing Orcs, my first army. I'm also collecting Chaos Space Marines these days. That one game was enough for me to know that Chaos Space Marines suit me very well. I still play with Oliver regularly and sometimes joke about how I switched to Chaos because of one dickhead move. Because you like it when photos are added, I'm adding my Hellbrute as an attachment. Here he defeated a knight here in close combat. Henceforth he's been known as Knight Killer. Okay, let's have a look, shall we? Cool, like it. I sometimes forget how gargantuan knights are compared to most things in the game. That's kind of silly. Look at that. That's a Hellbrute. That's a Dreadnought, essentially. That is a Dreadnought, essentially. The size of that thing. My God, man. My God. Anyway, moving on. Lee says, "Greetings, Mr. Exile. You can call me Lee." Okay, I have done. "I have a hobby nightmare that entwines little plastic army men, real living army men, and the misjudgment of youth." Okay. "Growing up, I was a stereotypical nerd. I read a lot, played Dungeons and Dragons, had a substantial Magic the Gathering collection, the works. If it was geeky, I was into it. Needless to say, my experience with the fairer sex was nil." Oh. There's nothing better in the hobby or anywhere than a self-deprecating, you know, older nerd. They're just so savage themselves. Anyway. "I grew up in a small Midwest town. Being a socially awkward nerd in that environment was painful, both physically and mentally. Lots of bullying, to put it mildly. My only sanctuary was the local neighborhood game store. I basically lived at the place during my teenage years. Nobody cared how awkward I was. I always had a friendly shoulder and a game of Warhammer when I needed it. Unfortunately, things got really bad at home, and in the town come my 18th birthday. The local game store closed down. Someone literally firebombed my car, and my younger sibling was being targeted simply by being related to me. I decided it was time to get out. I joined the army." Whoa, out of the frying pan into the fryer, dude. "The army was actually a good environment for me. I grew up, learned discipline, got in shape, and instead of a tall, weedy teenage nerd, I was in shape, somewhat attractive teenage nerd." Not only that, there was a very robust hobby scene, so I always had something to do in my off time. Dude, that's brilliant. Excellent stuff. Enter Sue. Sue was a gal that I got to know at my first duty station. Sue put off the impression that she was the typical nerdy girl. She too was interested in plastic army men, tabletop role-playing and all those things that I loved. Sue also was the first female to pay me any sort of attention. That is a volatile combination, dude. Right now, this girl's got the keys to your heart, and she can do basically what she wants with you, because you've got no experience. You've been mistreated all your life by pretty much everybody, so somebody shows you a kindness and you're going to latch onto them, especially if it's a female, and especially if it's involving, you know, physical intimacy. You're just... Oh, man. You were in the crosshairs, let's put it that way. Sue's knowledge of these things was somewhat superficial, and hindsight being 2020, I should have picked up on that. She was always hanging on to me during game nights, asking to help with rules, painting and assembling minis, helping her make characters for RPGs, and things like that. Basically, I felt like the biggest fish in the pond with her around. Well, maybe she just needed help, that's fine. Her showing an interest in the things that you like is good. That's good. Things progressed quickly, and we ended up getting married. Whoa, slow. I told you. You would go off the deep end very quickly. Man, do any of you in the comment section... Right, okay, we've got a lot of nerds, because obviously we're all Warhammer fans, right? So we've got a lot of nerds. Have any of you, like, been bullied or not had much kindness or intimacy shown to you in your early life, and then the first woman who gives you any, you marry her? I swear to God, this is a thing. You know, it goes on. Anyway. Not really abnormal at the time, this was during the war in Iraq and Afghanistan, and folks were getting married quickly. See, you don't get military benefits for girlfriends or boyfriends, you get them for spouses. Nobody wanted to get caught out by dying overseas, leaving their significant other with nothing. We had a generally typical but extremely boring marriage. I made the money, she stayed home and took care of the house. She stopped going to the game nights after we got together, and not so subtly encouraged me to stop going. Long days spent training, followed by evenings full of anime. That was her only interest in life. Large parts of my paycheck were spent on anime. I didn't care, it made her happy. Again, hindsight is 2020. Yeah, it is. It is. If you noticed, like, as soon as you put a ring on her finger, she stopped trying. Because she's thinking, I got you now, bitch. Right? You know, she was trying to, like, be into the stuff that you wanted until you gave that, you put a ring on her finger. You gave her that security, and with that security, instead of cherishing it and, like, you know, making a home for you both to live in, because she's not working, so you decide, no, now you're my, you know, I don't know, just doesn't seem right to me. Anyway, my unit's number ended up coming up for the deployment to Iraq. We all knew it was coming, so it wasn't a surprise. And I packed my bags and off I went. I ended up seeing and doing things I wish I didn't have to. And it isn't anything to go into here. Okay, no problem. Hope you're getting help. Around halfway through the deployment, I was severely injured by a mortar attack on our forward operations base. According to the medics who worked on me, I died twice. I remember none of it. I ended up being medevaced back stateside. To make a long story short, I recovered enough for the military to say, we have no further use for you, you're being medically discharged. I got sent back to the town I grew up in, only this time with Sue in tow. Lo and behold, once we get back and settled in, I found out that the local gaming store has reopened. Excellent! Great news for me. I have something to do between constant doctor visits. I take Sue along, introduce her to the staff and now older regulars. I get to work trying to recuperate enough to get a job and carry my own weight. Sue takes an instant liking to the place and is there almost every day. I couldn't be there that often between doctor visits, surgeries and recovery. I was happy enough though. It seemed like she was getting interested in all the things we had in common at the beginning of our relationship. A few months go by, and I'm slated for a big surgical procedure that will hopefully get me out of a wheelchair and back on my feet. Said surgery is done in one place in the US, and it's cross-country. It's on the government's dime, of course, so off I go, by myself. Okay. That's good. I mean, it is good that they're paying for you, you know what I mean? I mean, the least they can do. My God. I'm in the hospital for 2 weeks, and the surgery is a success. Sue never calls, and never returns my calls, and I am extremely concerned. So I have a friend stop by our apartment to see what's up. He tells me it's vacant, and the car is gone. I'm freaking out, calling the police department in my hometown, calling hospitals, and everything. The police end up getting back to me with a, she's okay, we told her to contact you. Dude, she's done a runner. The police, at least in the UK, if they find something like that, like something domestic's gone on, all they'll say is that we found that, we told her to contact you, she's safe. Nothing else. You know what I mean? I can't imagine you going through all that while sitting in a hospital bed. That's just not on. It just the mind boggles. It really does. I get home finally and walk into a barren apartment. It's been literally cleared out. Multiple 40k armies, an extensive Black Library fiction collection with a few signed books, all my computer and gaming stuff, full D&D miniature manual collections, all gone. And there is a note on the table that says, "Don't try to find me, it's over." Wow. So she's robbed you too. That's a classy move. I was devastated and quite angry. I spent a couple of days feeling sorry for myself, then decided to do the one thing that made me happy. Hit up the local game store. I roll up, and that Space Marine army in the window looks extremely familiar. I walk in, and guess who is there? It's Sue, hanging off of another regular. Things got awkward pretty fast. Sue and her apparent new man just about sprinted out the door. The owner of the store was amazed to see me. Sue had apparently told people that I had just disappeared on her. She had taken all my hobby stuff to the store to sell on consignment. The owner was more than happy to return it to me, even though he was going to take a big loss. At this point, I was past the point of caring. Well done to that store owner. Well done to that store owner. You know, there's a lot of store owners that would have told you to swivel, mate. You know, well done to him. Absolutely. That's fantastic. I'm really, really, really happy he did that. I ended up just getting a few sentimental items and told my lifelong friend to sell the rest and recoup what he could. I never had any intent on getting back into the hobby again. To be extremely blunt, my plan was to go and take care of myself. In a bad way. Again, not going into details, but some amazing EMS workers intervened just at the right time. Lads, here's some advice for you, okay? If your friend's pretty depressed, right, and then all of a sudden he becomes alright again and asks if you want to buy some of his models, don't let that motherfucker out your sight. Okay? Because he's made a decision that you can't unmake. So make sure you are there for him, and you almost that you put him in seclusion with you somewhere, or you keep him on constant watch. Because that guy's trying to get rid of his models. He's trying to make sure that all of his things are taken care of when he's gone. Okay? And normally, if somebody's in such pain that they've made the decision to do away with themselves, they become quite happy afterwards, after they've made that ultimate decision that they're going to do it. They become genuinely okay again for a little bit. It's kind of like when you're dying of an illness, and it's very, very, very strange. When somebody's dying of a terminal illness, they'll appear better for the last 2 weeks of their life. For the last 2 weeks of their life, they'll appear like they're fine, they're better, they've recovered, right? And then all of a sudden, in 2 to 3 days, maybe 5 days, bang, they're dead. Right? They just go downhill so quickly. It's called the last rally. You know, it's something that the doctors, it's a phenomenon. Doctors don't know why it happens, but your body rallies, switches off the pain receptors, and it's almost as if your body knows it's going to die and wants you to set your affairs in order and for you to have energy and to be able to do things. And that's normally when people like that get married, you know what I mean, in those couple of weeks. I've seen it happen a few times, online and in real life, where people do stuff like that. This is the depression version of that. So if your friend starts to become happy all of a sudden, you know, like all of their problems are solved, and they start giving you things like models, or they start putting things, letting their family buy things for cheap, keep a bloody eye on them. Alright? I truly believe, and this is in my own heart, that the people who take their own lives, most of them, will regret it in the long run. Do you know what I mean? If you could go back to them and say, look, here's how your life would have gone if you'd have stayed alive, they'd regret it. Deeply. Alright, there are exceptions to that rule, of course, but I think most of them would regret it. So make sure, bloody hell, dudes, make sure you keep them close. you know? Now it's time for a happy ending. Fast forward a few years, and I've recovered extremely well from my war injuries. I went to college and got a degree in paramedicine. I wanted to help people like the military medics who saved my life in Iraq, and the civilian paramedics who saved me in my dark time. I moved to the big city. I'm a paramedic now, out there saving lives and helping people. I regularly go to counselling for PTSD, something Sue discouraged me from doing. Yeah, she did, because she wanted you to be reliant on her. From how she seems in the story. I own my own home, I have 2 decent cars, and I clear 6 figures a year in pay. My life is much better than before. Sue did make an attempt to get in touch with me, telling me she was almost homeless and how sorry she was. I told her to get in the sea. Just kidding. I told her she's made her bed and she can sleep in it now. Yeah. Yeah, dude, the amount of these stories I read when the woman comes back, you know, it doesn't work out, Chad leaves her, you know what I mean? Chad, quote-unquote, leaves her, you know? Dear me. And then she comes crawling back because she sees you've done well for yourself. You know? Guys, Avril Lavigne wrote a fucking song about it. Skater Boy, right? Those of you in my age will know what I'm talking about. By the way, Avril Lavigne. Chef's kiss, aging like a fine wine. Moving on. I'm also getting back into wargaming because of you. A couple of months after your YouTube channel popped up on my feed, and I've been listening ever since. I went out and picked up some paints, tools, and the AdMech Combat Patrol box. Oh, I'm so sorry, dude. They're terrible at the moment in the game. I'm slowly working my way through it between calls at work. I'll send pictures once I've got them painted. Yeah, please do. Thanks for being an ear out there, Mr. Exile. This is the first time I've actually sat down and told the whole story, so feel free to use it if you like. Keep being awesome, sir. Lee, that's a huge shot in the arm, sir. Thank you. Thank you. I tend to think that we get a lot of ex-service personnel who like listening to the channel, and a lot of the time I was like, well, why is that? You know, why do we keep getting, you know, folks who are ex-military? And one person in an email the other day, they said that there is a veterans channel, TV channel in the US that has very abrasive humour. That is, it's generally like a TV channel made for people who've seen some shit, right? You know. And they say, you know, your channel has a very similar vibe. It's just, it sounds like a dude in a bar talking to you about the hobby, which I quite like. So, you know, if you have been in the service, thank you for your service. And hopefully, you know, it hasn't ruined your life to the extent that it's ruined a lot of people's lives who have come on this channel. Like if my own kid wanted to go in the armed forces, one, I'd be extremely proud of them for wanting to do that, make something of themselves, but I would also be extremely terrified. It's their decision, of course, they're adults, but I'd be extremely terrified of all the stories that I've heard. Anyway, Grange says, Yo North, I hope this finds you well. It does, yeah, generally speaking. Thanks for checking in on us when all of your family stuff was going on. It must not have been easy. Having a group to text and chat about stuff that has gone on in the hobby and our jobs, new and old, is amazing. So thank you for that, no problem. I thought I'd write in just to talk about some of the things that have happened during my time working for Games Workshop. I'm a manager now, but most of my weird stories occurred when I was actually a red shirt back in the day. For those of you not in the know, a red shirt was a Games Workshop staffer, a store body who is not the manager. They changed the shirts to blue after a few years, as they were sick of the Star Trek memes and jokes. Yeah. Those of you who don't know, in Star Trek, those of you who don't know, all of you will know, but on the off chance, somebody wearing red on Star Trek is going to die first, essentially. That was the meme. So yeah, the meme was, you know, when a disgruntled customer comes in, of which there are a few working for Games Workshop, this guy gets shuffled out front by the manager. Take the fall for me, sir. Off you go. Alright. The first one is something I'd actually like some input on from you, if that's okay. Yeah, sure. Unfortunately, at Games Workshop, we sometimes have to deal with quite weird people. It comes with the territory, I guess. One of the subsets of human ridiculousness is grown adults who are fond of hanging around with kids for all the wrong reasons. I have only come across this once, and even then, it was more suspected than blatantly true. I am talking about a guy called Liam for the purposes of this retelling. He seemed like an average guy, even if he was in the store every day without fail, even during the day. Most of his money came from looking after his kids, who both had autism, and so when they were with his mother, or somewhere else, he would come into the store and sit off, generally doing his hobby. The thing was, when we had beginner or school evenings, he would come in and kind of be the Pied Piper when it came to the kids. They would follow his lead as the older gentleman, and it just kind of went that way. Okay, I will say, I know a lot of guys who are genuinely pretty good with kids, right? They're genuine nice guys who just want to nurture and bring people up and help them. And I know a lot of those over the years, not accused of things, but like people tend to like snigger behind their backs. You know, we go, oh, well, he's hanging around with kids. It's like, well, dude, you know what I mean? Not all of them are weirdos. I bet this guy's going to be, but not all of them are. You know, I've known teachers who are like this. I've known teachers who are very, very, very good with kids. They're just because, you know, lo and behold, they're teachers, right? But I just know that the more cynical people out there would have a few snide remarks. It's normally people who've never done anything with their own lives. People on Reddit, for instance. Sorry, guys, if you're on Reddit all the time. But that place is a fucking cesspool. That is a cesspool. Anyway. I would notice, though, that he would stand over the boys and lean over them as if as they were making their moves in their games. If he needed to correct something on the table, he would physically touch them to get them out of the way, and would always be very giving with his hugs. Okay, this guy's a weirdo. Yeah. There are lines you don't cross. Alright? Physical contact is one of them, in any way, shape, or form. Don't do it. He would also speak about things that were just not appropriate for kids. Nothing major at the moment. Just stuff that would make you do a double take. Okay, before I carry on, one of the main signs of abuse as a teacher that you see are kids who have knowledge of things that are blatantly adult. Or they're using language that is adult. Not swearing, I mean like, you know, very advanced language for their age. That can actually be a big warning sign that something's not right, you know? That the kids are being exposed to things that they shouldn't be being exposed to. Doesn't always mean there's the worst kind of abuse going on, but it does mean that you need to have a word with parents or guardians just to say, look, I don't know where they're getting this shit from, but they're 8 years old, 7 years old, whatever they are, they shouldn't be saying stuff like this, right? You need to let kids be kids and not burden them with your adult bullshit, essentially. And most of the time, it's just kids who've overheard their parents arguing every single night. You know, they'll start to develop very adult mannerisms and very adult ways of thinking and speaking, and that's not right. As a kid, you should be a kid, and you should grow up naturally, you know, with other kids and learning how to be an adult as you go along. Being jarred into it like that is not healthy and can lead to some pretty nasty ramifications later on in life. So, you know, kids using adult language is a big, big, big warning sign for most teachers. Just be aware of it. If you are an educator, or you want to go into education, as I know a lot of you do, we watch my stuff, it's very good. We need more teachers. Be aware of it. Be aware of it, alright? So, I took this to my manager, Chris, who told me that he had always been keeping an eye on him and to ban him immediately with his authority if things went any further. Chris had taken Liam aside and had a word with him, telling him his subject matter of speech was a bit over the top for kids being with him, and that he needed to never touch kids that were not his own in any way in the store, even if it was just an innocent or friendly pat on the back or something. This warning would spook anybody else if they were innocent, let's be honest. I've heard of Games Workshop managers giving this talk to dudes, and the dudes were totally innocent and alright, just overly friendly. and they were mortified when being told off, but went along with the wishes of the manager if they remained at the store at all. Liam, though, was not one of those people. His behaviour continued, and on my first shift back from a few days off, I overheard him talking about the live-action film version of Ghost in the Shell to the kids. Oh no. Oh no. If you've seen that movie, guys, you know what he's going to talk about here. For those of you not in the know, again, Scarlett Johansson plays the lead role in that, and her clothes are not always on. Liam told a table full of pre-teens and early teens that he always, and I quote, watches that movie in slow motion, if you get what I mean, unquote. Oh no. And that he used to jerk off to it a lot. Alright, get this guy out. Get this guy out. Alright, he's not technically broken any law or anything, but like, get him away from your fucking store. Okay? Maybe you report him to the authorities. Social services will be a good one to go to. If this guy's got kids, do you know what I mean? Not good. I pull him aside physically and tell him he needs to pack up his shit and leave. That he has been warned, and that he's now banned for life. This dude actually pleaded innocence, which blew my fucking mind. I ended up calling Chris, who was off on that day, who told Liam to leave or he was going to call the police. Liam quickly packed up his shit and left. My question is, how prevalent do you think this kind of thing is? I think you've mentioned it once or twice, but it's always interesting to get a new take. Okay, there's more to the story, by the way. This isn't how it ends. I'd say unfortunately, if you're working with Games Workshop, I'd say it's probably quite, not prevalent, but nearly. Listen, I didn't work for Games Workshop for that long. I've said that before. You know, like, you know, I'm not the kind of guy who could tell you extensively like what you come across after 8-9 years in the job. But I do know a lot of people who've been at Games Workshop for 8-9 years, 10 years, 15 years, right? Speak to them on a regular basis. I get to, like, you know, have Discord calls with them and shit like that. We're playing Conan together later. And quite frankly, you will come across it at least once in your career. This isn't an indictment on the hobby. It's just, as a Games Workshop store, you are a magnet for everybody in the hobby. And that draws all good and bad people to you. And I think the fact that we only have 1 or 2 stories per person per decade, really, when you think about it, that's quite a feat in and of itself, you know? It shows how good the hobby is, that we only have a small amount of these stories to tell, you know? Happened once or twice to me. I was quite unlucky when I was at Games Workshop. But my manager, he told me stories all the time, of like, you know, 5 or 6 times where he's stepped in and protected kids in his store. One thing that Games Workshop managers are genuinely fantastic human beings at doing is protecting the younger people in their store. You know, there is a zero tolerance to it. You know, of things like that, which is great, really good stuff. Also, Games Workshop, the company itself, like the higher ups, the HQ, they also know the procedures on the back of their hand. You know, of what to do when you get one of these freaks in the store. So it is a place where I would genuinely be okay sending my own kid. You know, I wouldn't, because it's not a fucking daycare centre. It's not a creche, you know. I'd be in there with them all the time, or they'd be with a family member. But if push came to shove and I had to run out and do something, you know, I'd be okay leaving my kid. If I knew the Games Workshop manager, I'd be okay leaving my kid there for a minute and going and doing something, coming back. You know, it wouldn't faze me at all, because I know the training that they go through. I know how seriously they take it. You know, so even though it can be quite prevalent, it's not as prevalent as you think. Do you know what I mean? For the size of the hobby that we have, the fact that our numbers are, you know, everybody working at Games Workshop for a decade will have 1 or 2 stories where they've come across freaks like this. That's actually quite good in terms of numbers when you think about it. Of all the people who come in, and for such a weird hobby, which it isn't to me, but to other people it is, they get classed as weirdos, don't we, for playing with toy soldiers, right? Well, I think you'll find that video gaming, has a lot more freaks like this than we do as Warhammer fans. Right? We're actually quite a well-behaved hobby on the whole. I'm not joking. We actually are. We're quite a well-behaved hobby with quite good people in it. Our standard of person is very, very high in this hobby. Anyway. Anyways, moving on. The second thing I'd like to share is the genuine vitriol you get sometimes as a Games Workshop staffer. This has remained with me even as a manager, and is something not a lot of other retail workers have to put up with. The thing is, when you're working for Marks and Spencer's here in the UK, or something like that, and someone hates something the company does, it's not for you to take personally, or to justify. You have no stake in the company. You just work there. And people tend to understand that. The same isn't really true for Games Workshop. You are front and centre to most people and the face of the company in the local area. If people don't like something someone in Nottingham has done, then you will face people going out of their way to come to your store to lambaste you for it. A decision you had nothing to do with, and a decision you might not even agree with. One of these times was at the end of 7th edition to me. A man came into my store trying to return a Dark Vengeance box set he had bought from another Games Workshop, and later he found out that 8th edition was dropping soon with updated Space Marine models. That's fair enough, I thought, although I wished he'd returned it to the Games Workshop he got it from, the next town over, not far away, for obvious reasons. Yeah, for those of you who don't know what those reasons are, when you return a product to Games Workshop, right, they give you your money back, of course, but that money comes off of their daily total. So if you go to a small Games Workshop, I don't think Grange works at a small one, I think he works at a big one in the UK, from what we've talked about. But if you go to a small Games Workshop and they've made £300 that day, right? If you go in and you return £150 worth of stuff, they've now made £150 that day. And Games Workshop don't give a shit if anything's been returned to the store. They just see it as, no, you've only made 150 quid, you're doing your job very well. Now imagine how frustrating that is if you didn't sell that item to them in the first place, right? It's happened to me a lot. I had other managers sending people to my store to return products that they bought in their store. Don't know what justification they gave for that. Maybe they said, oh, we can't do it right now because the till's down, or, I don't really have whatever, or maybe their staff have said, I haven't really got permission to do that, but there's another Games Workshop store down there where the manager is in, he will do it for you, that kind of thing. And so I had people coming into my store, which is very small, and saying, hey, I want to return this. And I had to say, yes, okay, fine, I'll return it. And, of course, if I've made £100 that day, and they return £150 worth of stuff, I'm 50 quid down. Like, my store's made a loss that day. You get bollocked for that, and it's not your fault. So, yeah, that's why, if you buy something from GW, please make sure you insist that you return it to the place that you bought it from, rather than another Games Workshop store. That's not very nice. They didn't make the mistake, do you know what I mean? Anyway. That's fair enough, I thought, although I wished he'd returned it at the Games Workshop he got it from, the next town over, not very far away, for obvious reasons. But I went ahead with the return whilst telling him he was probably making the right call with 8th edition just around the corner. That's very nice of you. I quote, I don't give a fuck what you think, give me my money back and I'll leave, unquote, he said. Wow, alright. Nice guy. I don't know why, but I just thought, nah, I tried to be nice, but I'm not taking that. I told him to never speak to a staff member like that if he was hoping for a return. I then asked to see his product. Lo and behold, the Dark Vengeance set had part missing, and the box looked kind of old. I sighed, seeing where this was going. I said, and I quote, "This box has been used extensively, sir. There are models missing from its sprues. I can't process a return of a used product, as I cannot sell it on. Do you have any proof of purchase?" Unquote. He saw red. Immediately he started accusing me of stealing his money if I did not give him a return, and that he'd been defrauded by Games Workshop for the last time, quote unquote, and to give him his money back or, and I quote, "there are going to be consequences," unquote. Well, that's a threat, dude, so you can just remove him from your store now. You just call up. If it goes that way, you can just call the police. He threatened me, you know? What a dickhead. I asked him again if he had a receipt for the order, telling him now that I was trying to return his order for him, but couldn't do that without a proof of purchase. I technically could return it without one at my own discretion, without proof of purchase, but without a proof of purchase, we are not legally required to return your item though. With this guy's hostility ruining my day, I am not one for confrontation. I had decided that, at my discretion, he could fuck right off. Good lad. Good lad. I tried to remain calm as he screamed at me over the till and threatened me in front of other customers, picking up his dark vengeance and making for the door before kicking it open. The hinge at the bottom popped out, broken. I sighed again and took a moment to compose myself before heading over there, embarrassingly, and checking the damage. I then called the head office and asked them to send somebody around to fix the door and filled them in on the exchange that had occurred. I had to do this because I didn't know whether this guy would come back with a weapon or something and attempt to rob my till. He seemed that unhinged. This is not the only time this has happened to me working for Games Workshop when there has been a decision made by head office that has justified, quote-unquote, some of this poor behaviour. I would love to say, of course, that this was an isolated incident, but I get either snide remarks, open hostility, or called names in the street for wearing my Games Workshop stuff on a monthly basis. Weekly, if Games Workshop have done something that people don't really like. Around the time of the pandemic and the George Floyd stuff, when all that was kicking off and Games Workshop did their infamous "You are not welcome here" speech, that was some of the darkest times I've ever been a Games Workshop manager. Oh my god. Oh my god, I can imagine. Oh dear. Oh no. Yeah, for those of you who don't know, Games Workshop did a very, very, very controversial post where they said, you know, how Warhammer's for everybody, and if you don't like that, then get out, sort of a thing. I can only imagine the vitriol you face as a Games Workshop manager back then from people, you know. Even if you agreed and said, no, Games Workshop shouldn't be doing that. They sell toy soldiers. It's not your place to tell people how to act. Go fuck yourselves, right? That was my reaction, you know. But don't take it out on your local Games Workshop manager. What's he going to do? What is he going to do? Excuse me, head office. Yeah, Dave here is really, really upset about that speech you gave. I think we should close the entire fucking company. No. It's not going to do that, is he? That's... Ugh. Go to the head of the table. Right? Go to GW themselves. Don't go to your local Games Workshop manager. He's there to sell your toy soldiers. And that's all he's got the power to do. Okay. It's not something I've really seen other retail workers have that they have to go through. This is something utterly unique to Games Workshop, and I'll be honest, not all Games Workshop managers are equipped to deal with it. I hardly am sometimes. On rough periods, I just go home and sob in the shower quietly before seeing my missus. You may laugh, but as I said, I'm not a person who is big on confrontation at all. I love my job, but fucking hell did the community make some days just awful to try to get through as a manager. I am in a large city, so it's to be expected as I get a lot of foot traffic. I run a very large Games Workshop store, of course, but yeah, those days are the absolute worst. I know Games Workshop is fixing to do something with Age of Sigmar soon that will give me grief all over again, and having that hanging over my head is a really shitty feeling. Anyways, thanks for letting me vent. Grange. Is that Age of Sigmar thing nuking half of the current model count for Stormcast Eternals and others like them? Because I can tell you now, yeah, I think that's what that is. You know, imagine you're a customer and you've gone and bought some Stormcast Eternals and you're really happy with them, right? You're going to go home, paint them up, and you get home, you open your computer, only to find that Games Workshop have told you, yeah, in a year's time, your models won't be able to be used in official campaigns or tournaments or events. So fuck you. Right? You'd march back to that Games Workshop store with your receipt, slam it on the desk and be like, can I have my money back, please? Do you know what I mean? So I'm really sorry, Grange. You're probably going through it right now as we speak. So, yeah. Just spare a thought, please, guys, for your Games Workshop managers. You know, they're not the bad guys that people paint them out to be. They're really good people. And at the end of the day, they're only there to help you get the models that you want and to help you enjoy your hobby. You know? That's all they're there for. They've got no power. Maybe don't have a go at retail workers. They go through enough as it is. I love you all long time anyway. I will speak to you tomorrow for some more hobby rantage. Should be fun. Should be a good one. I'll see you then. Have a good one. Bye now.